clearly neither of us actually has an intro for this.
I actually had one earlier today that I figured out that was absolutely brilliant, and I sat down at the table and I realized I got nothing. It's like the blind leading the blind over here. Thin reference to See No Evil, Hear No Evil.
I fucking love that movie, by the way.
I watched it for the first time this morning. It was quite good. I liked it.
So we're finally delving into some of the other people who we lost last year.
Yeah.
Gene Wilder being the first foray into it. And I also have to say...
And the greatest name.
Like...
The most dangerous game.
The ultimate painful irony of doing Snowpiercer as one of the last things that we did, and then having fucking John Hurt pass away.
Oh, like right afterwards.
I was just like, fucking... oh my, like, I don't think we're the kiss of death. That's way too, like, much of a cosmic coincidence. But I was like,
yeah,
no, god damn it, no.
Well,
no.
And we hadn't actually done our Carrie Fisher one yet. We'd been talking about doing the Carrie Fisher one for a while, and then it's like, oh, well, I guess it's going to be an in memoriam.
In memoriam.
Thank you. In memoriam.
You're right. Sometimes I'll finish your sandwich for you.
If that sandwich is going into the garbage, you should take it. You should always take the garbage sandwich.
Well, I was going to say usually after you've passed out, because there's no way that you're not finishing a sandwich, Patrick. I've never known you to not finish a sandwich.
Oh, that's accurate. That's accurate. There was one. It was a really bad sandwich.
Okay.
But as we digress into our strange eating habits, I did want to go through because I was really interested by this, and there were a few movies that I ended up not having time to see because of I was traveling over the weekend, and I didn't end up having to like time lined up to see all of the movies that I wanted to, and I really wanted to get like his whole career like through lined. But I wanted to make sure that I at least got, because I'd never actually seen any of his stuff with Richard Pryor. Like, that whole, like, block of movies, of which it's like a collection. I'd never seen any of them. And I know they collaborated for, like, 15 years.
I think there's only, like, 4 or 5 films. And part of it was, like, strained because of Pryor's massive drug use.
Oh, really?
Like, they were cool, like, from, like, Silver Streak. Like, that all went well. But, like, he was saying, like, even on the set of Stir Crazy, like... Pryor would, like, show up, like, 15 minutes late, 30 minutes late, 40 minutes late.
Well, and Wilder was very intense about professionalism.
Right.
Like, that's been extensively written about.
So, like, people always thought they were friends because they do these massive collaborations in terms of these movies, and, like, they were fucking great. Like, I really love the Gene Wilder-Richard Pryor dynamic. They played off each other so well. Richard Pryor is not my favorite as a comic, but as a comedic actor, I think he's great.
Completely
And the tandem just... absolute
like
magic.
But yeah, no. I 100% agreement there. And that's part of why doing See No Evil, Hear No Evil for me, which was actually the very last thing that I watched before I came over, was so wonderful. Because it was such a ridiculous concept that they dealt, like, no one in the film, at any point, looks at this thing and is like, well, this is normal. Every single person is like, you're shitting me. What? That doesn't make any sense. And the two guys themselves are basically like, you're shitting me. We're still going. Okay, right? There's like the one thing where Gene just goes, well, they never expected us to get anywhere near this far. Like, the fact that you can win that Richard Pryor can win any fight if he just knows where to punch. That was beautiful to me. Like, gets into the...
What time is it? 10 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 11 o'clock.
It's not 12 o'clock.
12
yes,
o'clock.
it is 12 o'clock. It's 12 o'clock right now.
So for clarification on this, See No Evil, Hear No Evil is a movie about a dysfunctional deaf man and a dysfunctional blind man who kind of come together to make the perfect couple of, like, one coherent person.
I think that they're both very, very, very capable. They're just too wrapped up in, like...
Well, I think it's taken to the comedic extreme because they're trying to be fully functional people in a world that's not really giving them anything for their disability, and they're not really asking for it because they want to be whole and fully functional in everybody's eyes.
They want to be 100% independent without anything else. And that was one of those things where, like...
The scene where Richard Pryor takes the other blind man across the street and they just end up in the back of the fucking moving truck.
That one was rough. And like the entire thing, like definitely like I can understand watching it from a modern perspective. And I was going into it expecting to have a lot of like, this is kind of ableist and frustrating and but then going through it and having both of the characters really be fully fledged characters whose entire problem, the entire reason that like they have these issues is because they are refusing to admit that they are blind or deaf.
Right.
Like if they literally at any point like owned that and started learning based off of that, their lives would be like so much monumentally easier.
I don't disagree, but there's also the jackasses in society that are around them. I mean, the cops are complete and utter fuck-ups throughout the entire thing.
Well, yeah.
Like, you know, blind man and deaf man, oh, what's this disgrace? Oh, we finally found him. You won't let me shoot him? What the fuck is, like...
Well, that was what was weird. Like, I had a run of 3 movies today that all wound up being, like, somehow politically and topically timely. Which were Blazing Saddles, the film adaptation of Eugene Ionesco's Rhinoceros that stars Zero Mostel and Gene Wilder, and then See No Evil, Hear No Evil. I keep wanting to call it The Blind Leading the Blind, which I know is not the name of the film. It's actually a fantastic Renaissance painting by, I believe, Bruegel.
I'll trust you on it.
But, where was I?
Talking about societal relevance today with the films that you'd been watching and the points that they were making.
And the fact that it even ended with the cops being like, but why can't I shoot them? Like, come on. Like, the old cop literally being like, nah, just let me shoot him. I'm supposed to chase him and not shoot him. And, like, that for me was just kind of like, because that whole movie managed to completely sidestep any kind of social commentary that is worthwhile in any way. Up to and including the evil enemy, like, mob boss at the end also being blind Samurai Zatoichi shit for no reason. And
because it's hilarious. I mean, having 2 blind men face off in a gunfight.
In the gunfight. The blind shootout was hysterical.
Oh, yeah.
It was hysterical.
So, to bring you back into what the actual plot of this film is.
I mean, it's not super thick.
Richard Pryor plays a blind man. Gene Wilder plays a deaf man. Richard Pryor ends up working for Gene Wilder, and they end up kind of becoming friends, but they also have to deal with this murder that they're implicated in, even though they didn't fucking do it.
And it should be conspicuous that they didn't do it.
Because they're fucking blind and deaf, but the cops suck.
Yeah.
And so they end up having to go through and prove their own innocence while being blind and deaf and only having different pieces of the puzzle that they have to interlace.
Yeah, so the whole thing is essentially like that episode of Star Trek The Next...
though, she's so hot.
What?
The female?
Oh, the femme fatale. Yeah. Yes. No. She is quite beautiful, and they make a point of that repeatedly over and over and over throughout the film. But I kind of felt the whole thing was like that episode of Next Generation where like Geordi and the Romulan are stuck on the planet and like Geordi like can't see but he can walk, and then the Romulan can see but can't walk, and the end of it is like blind Geordi dragging a crippled Romulan. And like,
I love that episode.
It's a great episode, absolutely fantastic episode. Which is part of what was fun about the film for me was the 2 guys who were really like they have incredible ingenuity, being like, all right, how can we combine our forces in each of these situations to not die in this horrible shit stag? And like young as fuck Kevin Spacey.
Yep.
What the hell? Just what the hell?
No, the first time I saw that, like, I didn't even, like, fully have, like, a grasp of who, like, Kevin Spacey was. Like, I was like, oh, this one dude. But, like, it's interesting seeing him in that to, like, the face and the figure that he's become and, like, the gravitas that he has now.
Or had.
All right.
Slowly. Actually, this was funny that this came up. There was literally a conversation. I was renting a movie with the lady friend over the weekend. And we're going through, and we got to the, like, My 9 Live, whatever the fucking Kevin Spacey movie is, where he's the goddamn house cat He's a billionaire that gets turned into a house cat.
I know nothing about this fucking
There's fucking
movie.
posters for it. Like, posters were all over the place for it. It's him as a cat and Christopher Walken as another billionaire. And it looks like some of the worst shit that God ever allowed. And in fact, God probably didn't allow it. They probably had to get him drunk and sneaked out under, like, somebody else's purview. But, like, I got to that, and she was like, Kevin Spacey? Like, wait, what is this movie? And I'm like, he's a billionaire who gets turned into a cat, and he needs to learn a lesson by being a cat. And she was like, what? Kevin Spacey?
Yeah.
The man who played Kaiser Soze? And it's like, yep. He started out so small, and then he got such gravitas, and now he's doing...
the end is the beginning.
Yeah. You know, it's like Patrick Stewart going all the way back to the bottom and doing...
You know, I think Patrick Stewart's a bit of a different case, because, like, he really just wants to have fun and does not give a fuck.
I think that's probably what Kevin Spacey did, too. I can't imagine Spacey's hurting for cash. I think probably, like, Christopher Walken and, like, a couple of the people he's worked with before in the industry were like, dude, you want to do a movie where you're an asshole cat? It'll be voiceover. We'll get high. And he was like, yeah, bro. And they gave him, like, $1 million to do it. Like, I'd say yes to that.
Well, it's interesting.
It's stupid
too.
and shitty.
Like, you mentioned Christopher Walken, and, like, that's actually my pull to, like, potentially watch this fucking movie. It's not Spacey, but fucking
Christopher Walken. But jumping back onto it, I wanted to take just a little aside, because, like, Gene Wilder really fucking meant a lot to me as an actor. And he was one of those people who, as a kid, you know, you start out seeing him and he's almost always in comedic stuff, and it's his comedic work is so precise, both his ability to play the straight man and his ability to go completely off the deep end crazy in just a split second.
He's got, like, a manic energy to him.
Yeah, that can explode. He can either be pure tranquility or pure mania, and he can choose in an instant. And he was one of the first people that I really watched, like, do comedy with that incredible craftsmanship of being able to have the, like, perfectly understanding the comedic timing and the way you've got to play it, but also having the reality of the character and the honesty of the emotion to the point where there are those moments that are not as funny, that that get you in a slightly different way, which is part of why my favorite from him, I think, has always been, or generally, that actually might have changed today, but my favorite has always been Blazing Saddles, because you get the Waco kid, who's this really subtle character, and is probably the only truly subtle character in the piece. Like, Bart is sophisticated, but he's not a subtle man. He doesn't try to be. Everything about the Waco kid is understated, and he does such a gorgeous job of tying that all together. And that's part of why I just had to, even though he's only in, like, essentially the second half of the film. I had to put Blazing Saddles on the list.
It's interesting. He's done a number of films where, like, there's, like, this setup that's all these other pieces, and he's in it as, like, a headliner act, but he's only in, like, the last half. And, like, he ends up being the show. Like, Willy Wonka. The same fucking way.
I don't give a fuck about Charlie. I don't give a fuck about Grandpa Joe.
No, because they're fuck awful.
Yeah. They fucked it up. They just cocked all over one of my favorite goddamn books.
I agree completely, and I think we're going to get some flack for this, but I'm really not a big fan of that movie. I think the casting of Wilder was excellent for the character. And I think that the flaws in it with his portrayal specifically have to go with the script and the directing.
Absolutely.
But he is that
weird
character.
Slugworth thing and the whole... No, he was the only... It's not like 100% the same way the character is portrayed in the book, but he embodied that strange, weird, timeless mania of the character in the book. It was slightly different, but it was still so in the spirit of what Dahl would have written. Like, and Dahl hated the rest of the film because they, like, cocked up everything else about his book, and he was like, what the hell's wrong with you? He loved Wilder's portrayal of the Wonka character. And that's why, like, I'm completely on the boat with you. I don't like that film. I just straight up dislike it. I very much dislike it.
I rewatched it as the first thing that I watched in the whole journey leading up to preparing for this podcast.
Yeah.
Because there are so many people who view him specifically as Wonka from that role.
Yeah.
And, like, I don't I think that he did a good job with the role, but I just dislike the movie.
Yeah, absolutely the same. And other than, like, Pete Postlethwaite's, like, tiny little fucking cameo, and, what's his name? Who plays Veruca Salt's dad, who I love. He's a character actor from back in the day and just did a bunch of really great shit. Yeah, I'm completely with you on that. And actually, I did it second. About, like, a week and a half ago, I watched, Young Frankenstein and Willy Wonka to, like, set things up for doing this. And I was hoping to actually, like, have more time in between, like, space more out, and I unfortunately didn't. But, like, it's amazing how just his entry completely makes that film watchable for me. Like, up until that point, it's pulling teeth.
It's like 40 or 50 minutes before they get to the fucking factory.
And there's all the stupid, shitty, like, weird side jokes. There's, like, the scene with the psychologist and, like, the kidnapping and all this shit that you just don't give a fuck about. Doesn't make any goddamn sense. And then, like, it's just, I really wish that version of the film had more of what the book would have wanted it to be, more of what Dahl would have wanted it to be in it, because I don't think we're probably for a long time gonna get a better rendition of the Wonka character, and it makes me really sad that that's what Wilder is known for, and that's, like, because it's something that could have been so much better, and while it was an amazing thing, I don't think it's the best work of his career.
No.
I think the best work of his career is either, or at least that I've seen, is either Blazing Saddles or Rhinoceros.
See, jumping back to that, it's interesting to me because I think Blazing Saddles is one of the few times that I see him as being potentially upstaged. And it may be simply because of the subtle nature of his character, the Waco Kid. But I don't know. Like, I was watching Blazing Saddles, and apart from the fact that, you know, I was like, okay, this movie probably couldn't be made today. I enjoy it for what it is.
There's no physical way that movie could be made today.
So much shock value that's just counter to PC culture that we live in.
Well, but it's brilliant because it is all illuminating. Like,
no, I 100% agree.
All illuminating terrible issues that really exist and that still exist. Like, the whole brilliant, what did you expect? Welcome, Sonny. Come to my home. Marry my daughter. These are simple people.
Right.
People, these are simple farmers. People of the land. The common clay of the New West.
You know, morons.
You know, morons. It's just like, his delivery on that is so good. But as a side note, sorry, you were saying.
I was saying that's one of the few things that I think that he potentially gets upstaged in. Or were you talking about the...
No.
The counter.
We'd had the side note about the...
Yeah, and I don't think that's detracting from Wilder's performance. It's just the guy in the lead, I can't even remember his fucking
Cleavon Little.
Yeah, he does such a fucking amazing job.
Well, no, and he should. He absolutely is the center point of the film, and that's part of why Blazing Saddles is my favorite Mel Brooks film. Like, every single part of it is so tight and so on point and so precisely done, and Cleavon Little just carries that like a champion. But what I love about that is that it's Wilder, because he's not in a lead role, truly doing support, and doing support so brilliantly. Like, I can't think of anyone else who would have worked in a proper, like, playoff partners kind of a position with Cleavon Little in that film like Wilder did. Like, it was absolutely the perfect flavor that was needed there. And, well, I agree, yes, he does get upstaged. I think that was intentional, because the whole film is truly about Bart, and the Waco Kid is just a modifier to him. And that's part of what I like about him really being, instead of in a headlining role in a supporting role. Even though I do love him in a headlining role, like Young Frankenstein.
Which is probably my favorite Brooks, and, like, it's up there with See No Evil, Hear No Evil. I've definitely seen Young Frankenstein more.
Yeah.
Like, it was that, you know, you talk about loving Gene Wilder from being a kid and very early on, that was the film for me with him. Like, it...
Yeah. For me, it was Young Frankenstein. It was Young Frankenstein and Blazing Saddles.
I didn't rewatch Young Frankenstein for this because I didn't feel
that you didn't feel the need.
Like, I kind of wonder, especially since I've seen so much Gene Wilder in like a condensed amount, how it would hold up to everything else. But I wanted to get out and explore and like not stick with the tried and true. And again, going back to the earlier point, I think that it's interesting that so much of him gets made of him being Wonka when there's the two distinct chapters of his life that are the Mel Brooks and the Richard Pryor chapters.
Yeah.
And those trump, for me, anything that Wonka will ever be.
No, I'm in complete agreement. It's interesting that Wonka really catapulted him into a wider audience, because before that he was doing all of the American Film Theater stuff, which is the outgrowth of the group that actually did Citizen Kane. It's like the later work of that group after like Orson moved on and became Orson and did Orson things. But I definitely agree with you on I think that Young Frankenstein is probably my second favorite Brooks, and it's one of my top three. My top three Wilder roles is now like wildly in contention.
Fair enough.
Because again, like, I definitely figure there's like the Pryor era and the Mel Brooks era, which were the two kind of, I think, biggest eras of his work.
Right.
As concentrated things. But if you go back to like American Film Theater as well, there's a bunch of really interesting stuff. So one of the ones that I watched from that was the Rhinoceros one. And I don't know if you want to discuss Young Frankenstein right now or
I think people probably know it. I'm not, like, I know of Rhinoceros conceptually, and like I wanted to watch it, I didn't get to it.
Oh man. It's one of my favorite pieces, and it's really, really fucking hard to do well, because Ionesco is my favorite absurdist playwright.
You've mentioned that.
And Rhinoceros, probably. And Rhinoceros is his most coherent play. And for that, I love it, because Ionesco really understood how to craft what he was doing on the stage. He just chose to do it in this completely whacked out avant-garde way. And having both Wilder and Zero Mostel give such absurdly powerhouse performances. And just to give the audience, if you're not familiar with Ionesco's Rhinoceros, it's a play, a major absurdist playwright from early 20th century, that they did the film version of, where two friends meet up in a coffee shop on Sunday. One of them is... I can't remember his name. One of them is John, who is like, by all accounts, the, well-dressed, successful, strong man who, like, does everything correctly and is all like the beacon of civilization. And the other guy, it's like Edward or something like that. The two of them live near each other in the same building, and Edward drinks too much, mostly on the weekends, but sometimes on weekdays, is often late, and just truly hates all of the, like, degrading realities of everyday life, and is different from everyone, and can't seem to get himself to just match into the routine of everybody else's life. And while he and John are having lunch on this Sunday morning with Edward super hungover, a rhinoceros stampedes through the street. And everyone remarks on how remarkable it is. And then moves on with their day. And slowly it becomes more and more clear that people are being infected and are turning into rhinoceroses, which are stampeding more and more and more and more. And the further you go in the play, the more everybody gives into what basically each person has like an internal struggle to see whether or not they're going to give in to what the masses want of them, which is turning into a rhinoceros. And the only one at the end who fights the good fight is Edward. And at the end, basically challenges all of the rhinos, like, come on, kill me, motherfuckers. It's the only way you'll win. And that's the end of the play. And it's one of my favorite final moments is him screaming, "I will never capitulate," at like the armies of rhinos after they've taken everything from him. But Zero Mistel plays Jean, who's one of the first people who transforms. And getting to watch the two of them play off each other, number one. And number two, watching just a really fucking well done production of Rhinoceros. Like, truly well done. Like, generally you hate John. You just hate him. He's obnoxious, and he's officious, and he's kind of a hypocrite, and you just hate him from the beginning. But you actually like him. You understand the friendship between these two men. And they're both flawed people at the beginning, but they're both like people that are likable and understandable. And Wilder did such a great job of playing the humor of this character, who is weak. Like, it's a point that's repeatedly made that he is weak, he is not ready for any of this. But he simply cannot accept this horrible thing, and everyone else is willing to accept it. And there's the fantastic line towards the end where he's like, you gotta watch out for this. People who insist on their individuality rarely have happy endings. And walks out. And I was like, oh man. And getting to watch him really like knock it out the park on something that was more dramatic was really cool.
Well, the interesting thing too, I mean, he didn't think of himself as a comedic actor until he started working with Mel Brooks. Like, the early part of his career is dramatic stuff, and like he wanted to get back into dramatic stuff, but had basically been pigeonholed as a comedic actor by this point because he'd done it so fantastically.
He was a brilliant comedic actor,
but I think that's part of what like enabled him to do these roles and hit these lighter notes of playing the straight man or doing whatever was needed in the scene. And even, like, being stone-faced with the absurd.
Yes.
Is because he's not coming from the comedic background. He came from a dramatic background and transitioned seamlessly.
Yeah, and was such a perfectionist in terms of technique in his dramatic background. One of the other movies that I pulled up and watched, which was another basically recorded theater production, there's this somewhat obscure American play called The Scarecrow, about a scarecrow that comes to life and deals with all the vagaries of being human and is like, oh God, why? And I originally ran into the thing because a dear friend of mine did one of the big monologues from it repeatedly in high school when we were going to high school together. And I found out around that time that Gene Wilder did a production of it as The Scarecrow. And it's like purely like this really gnarly, weird kind of like magical... It's not even quite magical realism. It's this weird, totally undefinable thing, but of like Gene Wilder basically being Data from Star Trek, like slowly exploring what it means to be human.
Damn.
And like learning to love and then like learning to hate himself because the love doesn't love him. And there's this like whole scene where he's like screaming to the moon in the night, and it's fantastic. And while it's not, I think, because it's really early Wilder career, it's like, the recording is, I think, late 60s or early 70s. It's like, at the latest, 72. He doesn't have quite all of his control yet. So there's moments that fall a little bit flat. There's moments that fall a little bit dead. But it's also the only time that I've ever gotten to see him in film do, like, a 2-hour, purely serious, like, deadly serious role. And honestly, he did a fantastic job. So that's like an element of his background that like I had not explored enough, and I was really happy to be able to like spend some time doing on this rewatch of his stuff. So getting both The Scarecrow and Rhinoceros was bomb for me, because I also just love Zero Mistel. And I had to get something that had Zero Mistel and Gene Wilder, because I missed the producers on this one. Because I watched the producers like 100 times when I was a kid, and I was like...
It's interesting that you
I want to rewatch it. I love it, but...
It's interesting that you bring that one up. I didn't rewatch it for this either, but I actually saw the remake before I saw the original. And I loved the remake version until I saw the original version. And then I was like, the remake is shit. This is the definitive version. And it's interesting. I don't know what exactly made me have the turn on Matthew Broderick, because I used to like him when like I was younger and I was watching film and everything, And then I just got to this point where there is only hate for Matthew Broderick. And I'm wondering if deep down inside it somehow, like, he's not Gene Wilder. Like, you lied to me, motherfucker.
I honestly think that for me, that was a big part of it. He starred in, like, a couple of things where he was remaking older films, playing roles where I really didn't think he had the chops for it. I still like the remake. I just completely agree that, like, the original version shits on it. I only saw the remake maybe a year ago. I was with a couple of friends, and one of them was on acid, and they wanted to watch something trippy, and I started laughing, and I put on the remake because I hadn't seen it. But I actually thought they did a pretty interesting job of it. But I think both Lane and Broderick fell flat for me because neither of them have that same level of focus and craftsmanship that Mostel and Wilder had. Like, when Broderick finally snaps, you don't feel it the way you do when Wilder just
again,
snaps.
because he has that fucking manic energy that he just turns on and he can go. But
oh my god.
Obviously, they're hyperbole for me in my previous statement. Like, I don't fucking hate the remake of the producers. Like, I still enjoy that fucking film.
Yeah,
but
and
like the original is definitely the definition. Uma Thurman is somebody who's never been sexy to me.
I feel
like
she isn't to everyone.
People get like, this Uma Thurman role, or like, didn't you see it? I'm just like, I don't think she's bad by any... Like, the weird thing is, I think I've mentioned this before, like, the sexiest she's ever been to me is Gattaca, where she's not, like, objectively sexualized. I'm just like...
Yeah, she's like a mostly non-sexual being. Yeah.
I don't know.
No, and I can feel that. The sexiest she has ever been for me is... I'm going to sound real weird saying this. Kill Bill. Uh-huh.
I don't think you sound weird for that. I
anti-sexual,
think there's definitely like a lot of people who like feel that way.
But I personally I love Uma Thurman's work, and it is funny that she ended up being Ula, but she ended up. That was one thing I really liked about the new one, was that Ula actually kind of became a full character,
right?
Instead of just being the "Godai Pade, Bialystok Blue" joke, which was basically the entirety of her character in the first one. But just like, again, watching Wilder's arc in that first Producers is so good. Again, the subtleties of the character and the slow blossoming and the like trying to idealize Max and then realizing like, God damn it, Max, God damn it, Max, and like going back at him at the end. And then the whole turnaround, the final Prisoners of Love, Blue Skies Above. You'll keep our hearts in jail.
That's something interesting too. Wilder's love of song. I don't think he's got the greatest voice, but like he continually like went towards like musical roles and musical acts, and like even when he was writing stuff, like he would write in like musical numbers or like I'm singing or like other people are.
I didn't know that.
It was weird for me.
Huh?
Like just. I don't know if people would think that that's a cornerstone or a staple of his career, but it's something that I noticed watching a bunch of stuff.
Well, I do notice that, he does sing in almost everything he does. There's at least a few notes of him singing. Mm-hmm. And that'd be interesting to see about that, because he doesn't have a super strong voice, but he has very good control of the voice that he has. So, like, he knows exactly how to play it so that it sounds okay and he can, like, get out what he needs to get out. But, yeah, it's not exactly like World of Pure Imagination is, like, super well sung.
World of Pure Inebriation.
So, you'll be tanked like the whole Irish nation. Which scene,
Blazing Saddles when like, we don't want the Irish though. Oh, we're kidding.
Yeah. Whatever. All right, the Irish. We'll take I can't say any of the words. We'll take the blank and the blank, but we don't want any goddamn Irish.
The other races that helped build the railroad that we integrated with.
So if you don't know who I'm talking about, look up your history and maybe go to fucking school.
Or skip all that and watch Blazing Saddles.
Yeah, I mean, Blazing Saddles will give you a full history of the building of the railroads.
So, did you get to Silver Streak or not?
Unfortunately. Okay. I want to do Silver Streak because that's, as far as I've heard, kind of the gold standard of the prior Wilder films.
It's interesting for me because watching for this was the first time that I'd seen it, and I would actually disagree with that. But the point where the movie just goes over the fucking moon is when Wilder and Pryor finally like get together, and like that's when shit really starts to take off.
Nice.
But it's interesting to me too because Patrick McGowan's the antagonist in it. And
what?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my god, I didn't know.
And like watching this, I was like, I did a double take. I looked it up just to be that's totally fucking Patrick McGowan. I was like, if Patrick hasn't seen this movie, he needs to go back and fucking watch it. Oh my god,
I have it on my computer.
I
need it
just after like doing the whole prisoner bit with you. And he's delightfully vicious in this.
Oh, like, as he can be.
I think I preferred him in this. Like, even though it's a snippet of an antagonist role, I liked him in this on par or better than parts of The Prisoner.
Dude, I love it. I can totally feel that. He also was like a villain on Columbo like 6 times or some shit like that. He like helped produce Columbo for the last like 10 years that it was on. It was basically him and Peter Falk pumping their personal money into it. And so we just kept being a villain throughout that process because they were like, hey, bring back Patrick McGowan. So like, I love Patrick McGowan.
And tonight we dine on evil.
Yes. But no, that's fantastic. And again, like, I downloaded a bunch more stuff than I actually got in terms of, like, what I was going to, like, watch from him. Downloaded from my very legal group share thing from my film program.
I don't know why you need to, like, do this.
University of Lahore.
Lahore?
Yeah, you know Lahore in Pakistan.
Sure, Patrick. Sure.
It's a place. Learn your geography. Lahore, it's a real place. Yeah, there's, like, the rest of the list is getting watched. And I actually got a few things, like, there's some other weird random off thing that was just Wilder called The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes' Smarter Brother.
I saw that. It was written and directed by him. I was actually not... I don't think it's a bad film, but it's interesting whenever you deal with the Sherlock Holmes property, however you handle it, you expect some sort of wit and intellect to be going into it. And I'm not saying the film didn't have that, but he opted more for the over-the-top absurd.
Okay.
And from that aspect, there's a fucking scene in it where, like, his character is obviously Sherlock Holmes' younger brother, and he's a fencer. And so he's having a fight on top of a horse-drawn carriage, and he cuts this guy's whip in half, so the guy gets rid of the whip, and he cuts this guy's fucking, like, reins, so he can't fucking control the horses anymore. And then, like, there's this other dude, and then they end up having this battle, and there's a giant hand, and the guy gets the hand and starts hitting Wilder with the hand. And, of course, the next signpost is a giant shoe, so Wilder gets the shoe, and I'm just like,
all right, guys, we went a little bit far here.
Like, I think it was one of his earlier, like, things that he'd written and directed, and it was after he'd done at least 1 or 2 of the Mel Brooks movies.
So he was in that mode. I feel
like he learned the wrong lessons from Brooks. And I think that's something that kind of, steadied out over time. Because he did certainly love to write, and I like some of his later stuff, too, definitely. The last thing I watched was The Haunted Honeymoon.
Don't know it.
Which was a movie that he did with Gilda Radner.
No shit.
Yeah. And they were married, and like he absolutely loved Gilda Radner and thought that she was like miles ahead of him in terms of comedic ability. Yeah.
How did I miss this?
I don't know.
They were married?
Yeah. I mean, Gilda Radner was definitely somebody who, she died young. So
yeah,
like,
but I just
it's
I never knew.
Like
That's
they were
crazy.
married for like maybe like I don't
probably
know,
10 years,
something like that. I think it's actually 8. I mean, I could pull it up, but yeah, It's what's done is done. But yeah, I wanted to watch it because of that, and he talked about like how great Gilda Radner was, and just seeing the dynamic off of that. But that movie is really interesting because he plays a radio host who's it's like radio play, essentially radio theater, okay. And he's putting on a show, and like his life becomes the show, becomes life, and like it goes full meta, and like it's deciphering like what's real, what are the threats, what's actually going on, because the thing's a horror production, obviously. The Haunted Honeymoon, and he's marrying Gilda Radner's character. What's real, what's not, because things are kind of merging in terms of.
Okay, see, that sounds fucking
and it goes
brilliant.
Like full meta at the end. It's weird.
That's one I gotta
definitely
check.
Comparing like that to the smarter brother of Sherlock Holmes, whatever the fuck it was. Like just seeing like the writing transition, and again the subtlety and like the different notes that you're hitting, as opposed to just doing the over the top absurd,
ridiculous. Yeah. Well, which is also funny to me, especially when you're like, you expect anything treating the Sherlock Holmes property to have a certain amount of subtlety and intellectualism, and which, I mean, legitimately what they did is, I mean, you know that Sherlock Holmes in the books has a smarter brother who is smarter than Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah,
his name is Mycroft Holmes, and he's used as a computer by the British government before computers exist. That is his job.
Also, people have gotten the dynamic wrong, too, because, like, they normally have Watson be the fucking bumbling fool, but he's fucking anything but.
Yeah, Watson literally covers every single skill other than detecting. Because Holmes is a fuck-ass with anything other than detecting and science. So, like, connected to detecting. But, like, Watson is the guy who knows how to talk to people. He has the diplomacy checks. He has the bluff checks. He's the guy with the fucking... And Holmes does disguise. So, the detecting and the disguise. But, like, anytime you need somebody, like, you need the doctor. Mm-hmm. He's a doctor. He's a goddamn battlefield doctor. Highly decorated. He's a soldier and a doctor. I don't know. Yeah, like...
I guess it's a property that gets misinterpreted or misused a lot, and even when it is being misinterpreted or misused, even if it's to comedic effect, I expect there to be some like layer of wit and intellect to be the cream on top.
Yeah, because that's part of the whole thing is that like precise intellect. So unless you're making the entire point that Sherlock Holmes is like completely stupid and everyone else around him is competent, in which case then you're going to have to make everyone else really sharp and competent. You can't make it all a shit show.
Right.
And it's interesting. I didn't realize that Wilder got so into writing and directing material later in his life. I really want to go back now and do like a bunch of those.
The younger brother, I think, was like 73 or 76.
He was early 70s, yeah.
And Haunted Honeymooners was 84 or 86 or something like that.
Okay.
I mean, because again, it was while Radner was still alive.
Yes, but it was the mid-80s.
Yeah.
Okay, and that explains, because there was like a gap in a lot of the stuff that I was looking at from him in the mid-80s, and that actually makes sense. He was doing his own stuff where he was writing and directing.
Well,
though that always is something that I think that honestly people shouldn't do, because it almost always produces less than ideal effects, which is writing, directing, and acting in something. Mm-hmm. Like if you're directing, stay behind the camera. If you're acting, stay in front of the camera. And I think you can even work being a writer and an actor in it, but then you need an outside director who can then add their voice and be like, no, you're getting too stuck on this idea, you know?
Completely non sequitur, but it's something that I think really turned out for the best. As you know, I love Clerks. I love Kevin Smith. When he was writing the film, he intended the character of Randall to be played by him.
Huh.
But he stepped back into the Silent Bob role, and it worked perfectly for that.
Yeah.
Because, again, it's something that wasn't demanding, so he could still act in it.
Yeah.
But he could focus on the writing and directing and really work that angle.
Yeah.
And, like, it was so early on for him, and I think it ended up being a happy accident. Anyways.
Which, if you haven't seen that film, That's a very interesting
Happy
film.
Accident?
Yeah.
I have not.
Okay, it's an interesting film.
Okay.
Yeah. It's Mark Ruffalo. Might be Vincent D'Onofrio. I can't tell the two fucking men apart. Like, I know that Vincent D'Onofrio is the one who played Fisk, and I know that goddamn the other one, whose name I'm now spacing on, is the one who played Bruce Banner. They're both in the Marvel Universe playing different fucking people, Mark Ruffalo. But when they both have hair, I can't fucking tell the two men apart. But yeah, it's like this weird movie where he might be a time traveler or he might be lying to this woman.
Excellent.
And the whole movie is the question of, is he really a time traveler or is he this weird person who's like constructed this false reality in his head? And they don't tell you which it is until the very end. It's a very interesting movie.
So jumping back a good solid 15 minutes. To Silver Streak.
Yes.
It's Gene Wilder plays an editor who's going on a train ride from LA to Chicago. Mm-hmm. And like very early on you think it's going to be kind of mundane, like him like dealing with the passengers and like, you know, potentially falling in love. But then he witnesses like a murder essentially because he sees like somebody like fall from like the side of the train who's been like shot in the head, who's the boss of the woman that he's involved with. And he's like, oh fuck, like I have to figure out like what's going on. So like he ends up getting like thrown off this train and like all these fucking crazy like hijinks ensue, and like then he ends up getting like blamed for the murder. And again, like it's another one of those whole like I gotta solve my own like fucking, you know, I gotta solve the mystery to clear my name to
yeah.
And you know, of course, Patrick McGowan's the asshole behind all of it.
So good. Is he riding the train the entire time?
Oh yes.
Do they like drop the little crumbs at the beginning where he like says something innocuous?
No, you don't really see him until after the murders happened, and you're kind of like again trying to figure out what all's going on. And it's not your typical like, oh, this guy was killed for this reason. It's a weird backstory behind McGowan's character.
Okay. So he's Jack the Ripper's younger brother.
Yes,
is, in
obviously.
fact, a reincarnation.
The one thing I have to say about the movie, though, is again the era in which it was made and the things that could be gotten away with. It works in the
constraints of the film.
Yes,
yeah.
But Gene Wilder does blackface. And it's something specifically to go undercover. And Richard Pryor's character is the one that does it to him to help him go undercover. But it was something that I was like, I don't know that I can stomach this that well because of
really
looking at it with a modern eye in the world we live in. And I enjoyed the film, but I will have to mention that, and it's the only time I've seen Wilder do something like that.
Yeah, I've never heard of him doing anything like that at any other point. Thank you for telling me that, so that I'm not going through and I'm just like, why? At my TV. Because that happens every once in a while where I'll be going along and I'll be like, oh, hoop-de-doo, you're not... Ah! Like, don't do this. Kick him, Paul. Kick him in the throat, Paul Varjak. No, you aren't going to. You're going to help...
And it always comes back to Breakfast at Tiffany's.
It really does. I was watching a movie the other day, and literally a character was like, because, you know, I'm way more Breakfast at Tiffany's, and this is kind of our town. And I was like, number one, fuck you. Number two, you could not have chosen two more generic fucking things to put forward. Number three, Breakfast at Tiffany's was never a play. Our Town is primarily a play. So you're comparing apples to oranges. And four, fuck the fact that you called yourself Breakfast at Tiffany's. What the fuck was I even watching? Oh my god, I know what I was watching. The CW recently did a live-action, gritty remake of the Archie comics.
Huh.
And it is so fucking bad. It is hysterically funny.
I'd heard some good things from other people. I'd be interested to check it out. Archie's a weird thing for me.
It's poop.
Okay.
It's such poop. It literally starts with incest drowning. like creepy twins like going out to fuck on the lake. It is like
for sure
everything that you would hate about CW.
Okay, not that I don't trust you. I trust your opinion more than the other person's, but I still think that if I'm going to judge this at all, I should probably consume it for myself.
Oh, absolutely. Actually, if you want to get together and get drunk and watch like a season of Riverdale, I am entirely down.
Cool.
It's like so bad it's funny.
I've never been like huge into fucking like Archie fandom or anything, and like I've occasionally like picked up a comic and like thumbed through them.
Because the stories don't matter.
Right. But
Archie's having an affair with Miss Grundy.
Well, thank you for that, Patrick.
Miss Grundy. Her name is Grundy. I'm sorry. I'm done. I apologize.
Solomon Grundy.
Born on a Monday. Have sex with Archie
on Tuesday.
Buried on Wednesday. Seriously though, like for the audience out there, like Riverdale is fucking terrible, but like watch some of that. It's funny, and if you like it, I'm sorry for dissing it. It is not super well put together. I apologize, but that's my take. That's my take. And if you want to challenge me on that, I'm more than willing to sit down with you and explain to you why I believe that Riverdale is the actual nadir of CW quality. And that is, I understand that's saying something.
For sure. Again, one of those weird things that like, when I go out house sitting, sometimes there's not
when
much
you go
on.
outhouse sitting.
Yes. Gotta make sure nobody else is using this crapper.
Sorry, I'm
when I'm down house sitting, like, there's not fuck all on TV. So I ended up watching some, like, old school, like, Archie cartoons. I think it's from, like, the 90s or something. What? And I actually ended up enjoying them. They're stupid as all hell, but, like, I don't know, like, having that, like, help me through, like, crappy nights when I have nothing to do kind of had me like have a weird like bond with Archie. Like, you're all right.
I totally feel that.
You're literally, you know, a stereotype from several decades ago. You're vapid as all hell, but you're all right.
You're all right, guy. No, I think that's definitely the best that can be said about Archie is that he's generally all right, other than, you know, sleeping with his teacher while cheating on his girlfriend. Now I have, like, the theme song playing in my head, like, from the fucking... Oh, my God. I'm infected, Etienne. I'm infected.
You are. You're going to turn into a rhinoceros.
No, I'm going to turn into goddamn Archie. Turn into fucking...
There's worse things.
Incest twins.
So, speaking of twins, in the world's worst segue ever,
yeah.
Have you seen any of Something Wilder?
Something Wilder? No.
It was a sitcom that he did from 94 to 95. It only had like one fucking season.
What?
And it's hard as hell to find, but I actually watched like...
He must have been old as shit in that.
Yeah. I mean, he didn't look like enfeebled, but he was definitely like at least 50 or 60.
Oh, word.
And like the whole thing is like him like marrying a younger woman and like having like two twins and like him having to be like the dad role, even though he's not like really fitting into the dad role. But it was interesting to me that like that didn't work because all the like stereotypical like sitcom, oh, wacky situation, blah blah blah, like Wilder was able to pull off so well, just in terms of like his body language and handling. Like it shocked me that didn't go somewhere.
Well, considering, like the guy's physical comedy work is absolutely top notch. It's like Marx Brothers level physical comedy work. Something else for Rhinoceros. There's like huge chunks of it where he's trying to do things and just not being able to do them, and it's like part of like this intensive dialogue. But yeah, no, like that's shocking to me that didn't go through. I guess it just didn't hit the zeitgeist right. Zeitgeist right. That's it.
It's tough. I don't think anybody could say that 10 times fast.
Zeitgeist right. 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 Zeitgeist right.
I'm not counting.
I have now defeated myself, Etienne. What else can we achieve? Nothing, because Gene Wilder's dead.
Accurate.
I'm sorry. I'm frustrated by that in the extreme, man. Like, losing Wilder, and I mean, he hasn't done much for the last, like, 10, 15 years.
He, like, voiced something on, like, Yo Gabba Gabba, which I could not give a shit about. Shit. Like, he kind of, like, disappeared, and, like, I get it, like, you know, he was happy he wanted to do family stuff. He was evidently still writing, but I don't think anything that, like, he wrote really made it anywhere.
Yeah.
But it was more of, like, a passion thing, and I totally get that.
Yeah, wanting to actually... I mean, like, he still had ideas and was still churning them out.
Oh, yeah.
And that's just... It's interesting to me that, you know, like, he was so on it for so long that he probably just kind of slowly lost touch with the greater, like, currents of comedy, like, through the 90s and into the 2000s. Because, again, this is a guy coming out of American film theater. Like, that's old school. Mm-hmm. And so the fact that he managed to maintain that, like, power and that relevancy for as long as he did is actually quite remarkable. I think it's a testament to the precision of his gift. Though it would be interesting to see... I would be interested to see... Jesus Christ, I keep combining sentences! I would be interested to see some of those late scripts that he did after essentially having none of them go anywhere. And I would also be curious to find out if the new Robert De Niro film, The Comedian, is secretly about
Gene Wilder.
Robert De Niro is
Gene Wilder.
We wanted to pick the person who looked the least like him. Because Wilder really was this weird, like vocal Harpo Marx. He was like that same kind of ability to do the, like, silent and calm or zany as Harpo, but with speech and all of those complexities that speech and dialogue and that whole end of the acting spectrum brings to any kind of acting work. And as, you know, a huge Harpo fan, Harpo was my favorite Marx brother. He's my favorite physical comedian of that era. He even beats out the other Marx Brothers and the Three Stooges, and he beats out Laurel and Hardy, and he beats out, like, all those guys. Abbott and Costello, like, any of those guys, like, Harpo Marx beats him out for me. And having that, like, Wilder really being that, like, live, that I almost said live action. A live action Harpo Marx. A more real Harpo Marx was so wonderful, and, like... He was one of my early acting idols that I really tried to, like, base a lot of what I did off of, was, like, trying to hit that subtlety, like, figure out that subtlety. And I just, I'm gonna miss his work. And I wish that there was more of his work in the last, like, 15, 20 years. And I got a copy of almost everything that he ever did. Like, there was a bunch of things that were, like, complete collections. And I was like, sure, fine. I downloaded, like, 3 of them. So I'm like, I'm going to be going through and trying to watch as much of his film work as I possibly can.
Well, it's interesting, too, because so much of his career, like, it was bookended by television. Like, again, like, we think of him as, you know, this major cinema juggernaut, especially during 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
And, like, doing all these fucking comedic pieces, but also, like, the television aspect is important, which is why I ended up watching Something Wilder, because I just wanted to see. Like, it's not a departure because it's still comedic, but just seeing him in a different form.
And it's the departure in terms of medium. It's the same genre, but it's a different medium within that genre. And
it's also interesting to me to think about the television versus film and the popularity curve that it's kind of gone on, because you have early on people doing television and television being taken very seriously, then you've got a slump for television and it being seen as, okay, you're doing TV because you can't make it in film, and then we're back up on the upswing again where there's a lot of television that's being done that actually has, like, quality acting and quality actors in it.
And you have people who are doing these, like, big name shows who are then, like, getting massive cred from it and being able to parlay that into the films, like watching Breaking Bad end and then having Bryan Cranston have, like, 3 major film roles a year since then, which I'm super happy about, because, like, booyah Bryan Cranston.
I loved Malcolm in the Middle growing up. He's always gonna be fucking that character to me. And, like, I'm sorry, I do love him in other things. Like, literally, you showed up and I was watching Supermansion, which is a comedy, but he voices the main character in Supermansion.
Nice. Supermansion?
Supermansion.
I heard that right?
Super Mansion, not Soup or Mansion.
Yeah, no, I figured it was that. Now, if it was Soup or Mansion, that would be its whole own interesting show. And I would definitely go...
I'm going to go with the soup today.
I'd definitely go on that game show. Like, if it was a game show where you either won soup or a mansion, because, I mean, either way you win.
Oh, fuck it, yeah.
Yeah, you know, as long as it's not shit soup.
Much better than your money or your life, that's for sure.
Yep. Game show of the future. Drown them in pudding. But I don't know. It's definitely like the passing of an era, and it's an approach to comedy and to acting which you don't see a lot anymore. And for me, it's one of those like quiet, like take off the hat and hold it across the heart moments to really think about and be like, okay, end of an era. There'll be someone else who has a combination of skill and subtlety at this level. Again, just probably not for a little while. Yeah. It'll be unique and it'll be different, but I'm definitely going to miss his work and what more of his work there could have been. And I'm going to watch the shit out of something Wilder. Like...
Good luck. Again, I tried to find it last night. I could only find 2 fucking episodes. One of them had fucking Alice Cooper in it. I was just like, yes! Yeah. It's 2 things that I love coming together. Holy crap!
Well, I mean, like, I found some pretty obscure file
rental quit while you're behind, Patrick.
Websites. And was able to find some pretty obscure stuff. Like, getting a copy of Rhinoceros is actually kind of a pain in the ass. And getting a copy of Scarecrow is a mega pain in the ass. So I'm hoping I should be able to
I didn't even try and fucking look for Scarecrow when I was going through shit. I may now, because it sounds like an interesting departure, and I would love to check it out.
It's really interesting. The one thing I am going to say is that it definitely suffers from the theater production transition to film problem.
Let's go over and look out the window.
Yeah. So it's a little slow, and there's a couple, and again, Wilder, I think, flubs a couple of key moments, but it's hard to know what of that was director and what of that was him. And it's also like way at the beginning of his career. But I definitely encourage you to check out Scarecrow, because shit is business-like. Like, Excellent. It is like something you would do for business.
Excellent. Well, thank you for being here with me, and thank all you out there for being here with us.
And ditto from Patrick.
We hope that you're living life, you're loving life, and you're getting some Wilder.
Yep. I hope that everything in your life becomes wilder and wilder until, like him, we're all dead. Love you.
Oh, hey!